The calls for change in APD have come loudest in the form of recent protests in Albuquerque and across the state in the wake of the shooting of George Floyd and other high-profile police-related deaths. We wanted to talk to some local organizers and activists to find out what change they're looking for specifically and how they see their role in creating culture change inside APD. I'm joined today by Sean Cardinale, a community organizer with Truth to Power New Mexico. LaQuante Berry is also an organizer with the Black New Mexico Movement. And we've also got with us Reed Easterwood. And thank you all for being here. We had another guest lined up, a woman to join us. She couldn't make it. We feel strongly that having a woman in this conversation and a woman's voice is important. So we'll pick that up down the road. So it's a bit of a hole today. Reed, let me ask you a first question here, or Sean, rather. Let me go to you on this. All of you have been involved in various ways in local protests in the push for massive reform within APD. But why did you want to get involved personally? What was the impetus there?
For Truth to Power New Mexico, we just felt like we wanted Burqueños to not feel alone in this historic moment. The White House sent federal troops. We have our own APD still under Justice Department investigation and oversight. And we have issues still with the BCSO for not carrying their cameras and for stumping, basically, for the White House. So in all respects, we just wanted folks to know that New Mexico is still here. The progressive movement is still here. Black lives still matter, and that we want to be part of this larger, again, historic movement. This is the new civil rights movement. Could possibly be the next Reconstruction. And so we wanted civic leaders, faith leaders, and community leaders to be a part of voicing their concerns and their protest in that manner.
Same question. What motivated you to get involved officially?
Well, I would say officially taking over and having an organization. The killing of George Floyd played a big part in that.
Mm-hmm.
Me, myself, I'm from Mississippi. So I come from the South where, it's a big thing when it comes to racism. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of the whole Emmett Till story. So that touched me since I was a kid. So that's kind of what influenced me to take a lead and bring in a team of guys that have the same vision as myself to get out there to kind of touch the people and unify across New Mexico, and then actually get out there and touch other states and cities as well to let people know that New Mexico is here. We're in support of what's going on, and we want to change just like everyone else wants change as well.
Mm-hmm. Reed, I do have a bit of a more pointed question for you. Your friend and the community's friend, frankly, Ken Reese, was involved in one of the most recent deadly APD shootings. He, as we all remember, he called 911 in fear for his life because, it was a home invasion, as he described it over the phone. There were 11 shots and a lot of questions, and he's not with us. That led to another round of local protests. How did this death hit you differently than the other high-profile police shootings that we know about?
Well, I've struggled with this. It's hard to put into words. It's a personal loss. I knew Ken for 19 years and definitely was a very good friend of mine. Mm-hmm. And when someone dies, it's close to you. It's hard to put it into perspective. The quote unquote real world seems very unreal. And I've always felt aligned with the need for police reform. And I wanted to touch on something said earlier. The George Floyd killing was brutal, and the whole country had to watch that, and obviously caused needed attention. And I'd go back a little further. The federal consent decree on the Albuquerque police in place is of concern to me and where that's at. But to your question specifically, when Ken was gunned down, I felt that I had a bonding more in what I call the zone of victimization by police brutality. Mm-hmm. And there's no way I could say I know what other family members or friends across the country are going through. But I feel like now I have some sort of intangible peg on that too, on that grief process and what that is causing across the country for calls for police reform.
Mm-hmm. Sean Cardinale, obviously what Reed's talking about is not a new situation for us here in Albuquerque. Police brutality is not a new issue. And we're used to these kind of stories in today's age, and that's all well and good, and it's sad as it sounds, but does it make it different that Ken was white?
I don't think it makes a difference, because what it shows is that police brutality is a part of the culture of policing, which is why we get into these larger conversations about abolishing the police and defunding the police, which I have my own opinions on as far as what phrases you're using or what you mean by those phrases. But what it shows is that in general, and from a culturally systemic point of view, policing needs to be reformed. And now people are to the point where they're saying abolish or defund or some other way reimagine policing, because it's not working. The police have been militarized since the 80s and 90s. They bombed Philly in 85. They have run rampant over Los Angeles in the 80s and 90s. I mean, we've seen this for 30 years. And Black folks have been arguing about it for 50, 60 years before that. Right. So it's finally time to address why people are pushing back against police presence. And so again, Ken's death is tragic, like the others. And it showed, and while there is a preponderance of blue on black killings, it does show that overall there needs to be massive police reform in the culture of policing and to demilitarize it.
Mm-hmm. LaQuante, pick up on that if you would, your sense of that situation and where the movement is pointed towards.
I agree exactly with what Sean said. It's not about, I think that's where a lot of people get confused. It's not about a color of a skin. It's about, like I tell people all the time, it's about a person's heart. Someone's life was taken, someone's son, someone's uncle, someone's father. So it's bigger than that. It's a problem in the system. So that's why we always say that we're about reform instead of abolish. We say that because of the fact the system's been here all these years. It's worked for all these people of all these different races. Why can't we fix the system just to work for everyone instead of trying to tear it down and just do away with it completely? Once we do tear it down and we get away completely with it, what's next? So that's the question that we have for anyone that says let's abolish. Well, what do you have after you abolish? Now, if we just fix the situation that we have now that's worked for many of people, many of years, fix it to work for everyone. Again, not about just what skin color you are or about how much money you have, just to make it work for everyone, the American people. Let's fix that and get that right for us.
Mm-hmm. Reed, LaQuante just used the word abolish. It's sort of a word out there that's out there. And for viewers who are not totally close to the BLM movement or reform issues, there's abolish or defund. Which to you is or maybe there's a third term in your view besides abolish or defund. What's the proper way folks should consider the changes we want at APD?
Well, if I understood what LaQuante said, I think I do. I don't want to misstate what he was saying, but he wasn't necessarily saying you needed to totally get rid of the police. Mm-hmm. I agree with that position as long as we're going to have in place private property rights, which has been the nature of this country even before its inception. And so defunding the police, quote unquote, isn't necessarily, I think, an instructive term unless you put limitations on it. In my view, a great way to move would be to try to take some of the calls the police respond to off of their plate. For instance, mental health type calls, domestic calls, those sorts of calls. And that presents another can of worms, though, with a funding mandate. How do you staff some sort of calls that could intercept and not lead to potentially tragic violence? Mm-hmm. So I see that as potentially a way to reform the police across the nation and here in Albuquerque and focus the police on what I take historically was their mandate to begin with, going way back in history, which was just sort of protecting private property rights, not shooting people.
That's right.
And yeah,
I'll make a little comment on,
please,
bounce off of a Reed, and so too, I appreciate the quandary over defund the police, because I actually think that it's going to end up being a historically bad branding. I think it's well intentioned, but when you have to explain in like Washington Post and New York Times and in Vox and over again what defunding means, I think you've missed the mark tragically for something that is an important movement, an important pivot as far as police reform But to have to explain it over and over again makes it difficult. Like that's the definition of poor branding. And so again, when people are, I think it also unnecessarily causes a backlash. You know, like we already have enough attention on us. We are already literally under the crosshairs of these, you know, socio-political arguments. And so we don't want people to think, you know, it's anti-police or it's, you know, abolish the police, or you have to go through this long explanation. I think it also too speaks to like a scarcity mentality, you know, that we have to have a limited amount of resources with our policing. It's like, no, we need to properly allocate funds to the cops, but not over militarize them. We need to properly allocate, as Reed was talking about, to mental health care. We've had our own situation here in the foothills years ago. You all know about the mentally ill man who was killed by the cops here. That was a huge case. And so it's more about proper allocation in my mind. That's what I would like to see, and not think from a scarcity point of view, because then that's just Black people like me and Tay arguing again over scraps and crumbs from the table. And that's not going to solve anything. You need proper allocation across the board, not have us fighting over crumbs.
That's a good point there. Got about 3 minutes left, guys. Laquan, I want to ask you this question. How important is leadership in this situation, and accountability, of course, in your view? I mean, and where does it come from? Is it from the mayor? Is it from the upcoming or incoming new police chief? Who actually drives this thing?
That's a great question you asked. We actually just was talking about the new police chief, and we were saying that it should be someone of color or someone that's from a diverse area, so they can understand how the people here are. As we stated before, we're in Albuquerque, we're New Mexico. It's very diverse. So the problems that they may have in a Kentucky or Portland or somewhere may be different than what we're having here, because we are so diverse. So I think that's why we need to have the questions in the room of how we can get things right and get things better, because we shouldn't be going through the things that we're going through with being so diverse.
Mm-hmm. Reed, creating a culture inside a police department, man, you're talking a long haul traditionally, but we are in a new era, and it may not be as long as we may think, because there's folks like yourselves, activists, organizers who want to see change right now. How do you reconcile these two things? That it's going to take a long time, but there's a lot of pressure to have some changes right now.
This year, it's hard to wrap your head around this year with everything going on with the unchecked pandemic. And that's how I would answer that. That has exposed so many fissures in our system. And I think people across not only the United States, the world, are looking to some sort of expedited response, some sort of expedite different ways to live and to restructure human systems, period. And I think that will have some traction into next year and beyond. I think it's going to be a roller coaster. It's not going to be easy, but on the side of, I tend to have a negative worldview, people that know me, but to the extent that humans are capable throughout history of great accomplishments, this is, I think, the beginning of a period where the task is before us, and it's outside of the United States too. This is global. This is global. And this is just one symptom of huge problems. So I think that, I know you don't have much time, but I think that that is going to really drive a lot of change.
It's a good point there. Sean Cardinale, Laquante Barry Black, and you just heard from Reed Esterwood. I want to thank you guys a lot, for spending some time on this and talking so openly about it. We look forward to talking to you more in the future about it as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.